Welcome to Wellness Radio with Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher as your host. Her show discusses topics of health, wellness, and spirituality, and is about discovering your place in this great universe, from your cells to the cosmos. Along with her guest, in casual conversation, she strives to ask the difficult questions that may be holding you back from a vibrant life, and shares new ideas that may inspire you to make a change in your life that you only can see in your dreams. And now, here is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Wellness Radio. This is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher, and it's a pleasure to have you with us here this evening. Tonight, we are going to be talking about our memories, how we've grown up, how we're proceeding in adult life, what we're carrying with us to end of life. All of these memories that creates our identity, who we are. What is this human story all about? All of our experiences are hitting the walls. All of the sludge that we've been collecting all of these eons, it seems to be growing and growing. People are still trying to shed all of the past, all of the old stories, hurts, pains, and struggles. But boy, it just seems like it's got some kind of bungee cord and it just keeps sticking to you. As I've shared over the decade, I said, everything is all far behind me now, except it's stuck to my behind because it's just getting bigger and bigger. So how much baggage are we holding on to? What are we carrying with us? Yet what is essential for our well-being, and what can we let go? My guest today is Odille Remmert. She is a co-author of Change, What Happened to You, How to Use Neuroscience to Get the Life You Want by Changing Your Negative Childhood Memories. Who doesn't have childhood memories these days? If you're over the age of 50, boy, you've got some that are doozies. And what we're going to be talking about today is, what are we going to do with them? Are they still our imprints and our badges on our human wetsuit? Or perhaps can we say, man, I am so done with this, just let it go. And can we be next? Odille, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jeanette, for having me. I'm so excited to be here and having this conversation with you.
I'm so glad to have you at the beginning of the year. 2023, people are saying, I'm kind of felt like I've been in the washing machine lately these past several years. I don't know which end is up, and I certainly don't know where I want to go forward. Do you think maybe it's time to see what our identity is about, how we're navigating our life, and really what's on the table every day, yes?
Something interesting to know is that our brains are actually wired to break New Year's resolutions. So many of us go, right, it's the beginning of a new year, I've got these resolutions, and with all the best will in the world, that's the conscious mind's intention. But in the background, the unconscious part of the brain is referring to evidence that proves our existing self-image and worldview. And as you pointed out there, in the beginning there, it's our childhood memories that form who we are and how the world works. Change those.
Right, because you truly look at it, when our soul comes into this existence, we jump into a human wetsuit, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And the badges on the wetsuit, like Girl Scout badges or those type of badges that you get for the set or the other that you pass through, they end up becoming how we are seen in the world, how we are validated, who is our tribe. And many people will say, but that's important to me. It is who I am. So in essence, Odille, are we talking today about the spirit and the soul, or are we talking about the human identity based on an inner or an outer experience?
Great question, Dr. Jeanette. And what we're talking about is what you described as the wetsuit and the badges. It is the human identity.
Yeah, that human identity. It's interesting when I read your book the other day, and I kind of likened it to a groundhog, A groundhog goes along, sticks its head up, looks around, decides what it wants to do, and it'll either get out or go back in. Yet we come to Groundhog Day, and the groundhog sticks its head up, and he gets yanked out of the hole, and there's this whole story and this whole dialogue. What is he going to do? And he predicts and all of this other stuff. It's like that whole story has been smacked on him for that day. But the groundhog very intelligently goes back into the hole, and the next day does the same process, you know? So the idea is, are we navigating our life from that projection and that picture that a groundhog is always associated with that story of Groundhog Day? Or can we see that the groundhog just goes about its merry way every other day and picks and chooses what's important?
Right, and that's such a lovely comparison there, and I've got images of the groundhog, and they're so cute. And yes, you're right. There's a certain amount of sort of power we have that we are unaware of, and going about our day on automatic, which is human, that's the way we're designed for survival.
Right.
But everything seems so real, and the brain is designed to keep us alive. So we spend a lot of the time with our systems filled with stress chemicals like adrenaline, cortisol, that keep us in that state of survival. And one of the effects of that is that the prefrontal cortex of the brain, where we do our cognitive thinking, blood drains from that part of the brain, and which means that we are then on automatic. And it's only when that chemical state shifts from stress chemicals to feel-good chemicals that blood returns to that part of the brain, and then we can think cognitively again, and that's when we can have that perception of, the groundhog just going about his day every day. But
right.
Otherwise, we're just on automatic, and we don't even have that awareness. And that's what that's the first step, of course, and that's the challenge.
It's almost as if we consider it that when we have a human story, how we grew up, what our parents were like, what our family was like, the experiences that we had, how our ancestral lineage kind of played out. Many times people will say that that is who they are, and they hold that dearly, and they feel as if they are carrying the sword, so to speak, going forward. And they call it survival or resilience or all of these words, and they feel as if it's another big badge on them that they need to carry pain, suffering, and old stories. When in essence, is that truly what our goal is here?
Well, my view is that we all, whoever you are and whatever you've been through, you have achieved what you've achieved despite the suffering, not because of it. And so if you think about it, if each person thinks about the fact that if you grew up with a wonderful childhood, so you were born to two parents who were in love, financially stable, emotionally intelligent, peaceful, kind, compassionate, all of those things, and you were treated with love and kindness and compassion, felt safe throughout your childhood, and were supported, can you imagine what you would have been able to achieve then? So, and I think that's so important because, people say, well, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I am, who I am today because of the suffering I went through. And it's true that we are who we are because of the suffering we went through, but not in a good way. So, it says a lot for our resilience and who we are, that despite the suffering, we were able to achieve a certain amount. But letting go of that suffering and changing those childhood memories, changing those references so that they prove more empowering beliefs moving forward, that takes everything to the next level.
I think there's a lot of finger wagging and a lot of, oh, you're right or you're wrong, or you should have this or you should have that along the process. Because if you look at it in the year 2023, there's been a whole extensive paradigm of philosophical and spiritual and mental health evolution over the past decade or so. And many times people will say, but if I knew it then, I could have been better. But that's not really the process. What we're talking about at all today. What we're talking about is today. Because if you look back in history, Odille, it also, too, is our parents and grandparents grew up post-war. They grew up post the Depression. Nobody got out of that unscathed. Everybody has an experience. So it took many decades for people to change and alter the ways in which they lived. So I don't think we can say that, I should have done it then, and, I must have been a bad person, or I was ridiculous and I didn't take it up, and why didn't I see this before? And the answer is it wasn't your time yet. So if you're hearing us today in the year 2023, isn't it awesome that you're listening today? It's about today. It has nothing to do with, I wasted all of my lifetime, blah, blah. Regardless of where you are, we're talking about today. Yes?
That's it. And every individual is always doing the best they can with what they have at the moment. So, we could say, I should have done something differently or should have known something different before. But before, at that time, you did what you could with what you had at that time.
Right.
And so whatever brings you to this moment where you're listening to this kind of, information, this empowering information, this is the moment, like you say, this is the moment when you have what you needed to be able to receive it.
Right. Also, too, people will say, I've done all those other therapies, I've done all those other things before. They didn't work. And I don't like the analogy about that whole onion thing. I'm like, whatever, And it's kind of like when people say that, I'll say, awesome, that's fantastic. And we kind of phase through it. And I think of life as a web. I don't think of it as a ladder, progression, success, moving on up or moving out or whatever. One day you may be here, one day you may be here, and the next day you may be in a different place. So if we can see that and let ourselves be okay with that, then we are able to take on another, let's see, this might be something more inspiring to assist me where I am today. Versus saying, how is this going to fix me and get me where I need to be? Because you may start on a process of evaluating your memories, start shifting and reframing, start looking at things and letting things go, and maybe saying, I'm going to train my conscious mind and my unconscious will follow. And what will happen is we'll say, I did it great for a little while, but, I hit another bulldozer, But in essence, can we accept our life as a web, perhaps?
I love that description. Yes, I love the description of the web because there's so much more to life in general and humans as a whole than one straight anything. So a ladder or a path or a road. And I think your use of the analogy of a web, I think, is fantastic. That is far more accurate. I love that.
Right, because in your book, Change What Happened to You, you truly have a progression on how things will work, but you also share about the roadblocks you can come up against, or as you call them, the rumble strips. And, I kind of liken that to say, isn't that awesome? And they'll say, I'm in the same place I was before. And if we ever think about, how many physics classes have you had? I've had hundreds, of experiences within all of these science classes and chemistry and biology and physics and everything. And I can honestly tell you, nothing is ever the same. They are similar. They might seem to be wearing the same shade of the same color, but there is no consistent overlay where everything is exactly the same. It doesn't happen in physics, it doesn't happen in chemistry, it doesn't happen in biology, it doesn't happen in your physiology. It doesn't happen, period. So if you can hold that piece in your mind and say, okay, this appears to be similar to a prior story, then you are given the freedom in how you wish to respond. And you could say, well, I got angry. Well, anger has 100 zillion different shades of anger. Maybe you're just a different one, better one, good, bad, whatever, but you're a different shade of that. Isn't that what we really want to change about our memories or our thoughts or our consciousness? Is how can we explore the shades of our feelings, our emotions, and our responses?
Well, I think you're right about the all the different interpretations, the different shades of things, and the fact that things aren't the same is also due to the fact that absolutely every experience we have, and by experience I mean, hearing something, reading something, thinking about something, the brain is constantly changing. And so even rereading the same book, for example, if you read a book and then you come back a few months later and read the same book, you'll probably notice you get a deeper understanding, or you notice things you didn't notice before. And that's because as we take in information, as we have experiences, new neural networks are being formed all the time in the brain, which allows for new processing, and so we can hear the same information, have the same kind of experience, and it can be we can experience it on different levels and access those different shades that you're talking about.
Right, because it brings us back to the web again. Nothing is linear. How many times can you study for an exam or a test and you say, I took it maybe 5 times, and every single time I can't seem to get the number that I'm wanting, but I can't remember also what ones I got right or I got wrong, because you've really truly created that web. You're exploring the subject matter and understanding it from many different perspectives. So when we think about memories and trauma and things that really happen to us, we say, what are we carrying with us, and what is that imprint all about? Isn't your book about asking the question, what is that imprint all about? Right?
Yeah, well, and we have 3 questions that you can ask to find those childhood memories that are supporting current challenges. And the first question is, how do I know? So how do I know this is a problem, or what's the worst thing about it? The second question is, how does that feel? And then the third question is, where in my childhood did I feel that same feeling? Now, it may be a different topic, but it'll be the same feeling. So, for example, if I want to change how I feel about myself, so let's say I don't have much confidence, the answers to those questions may be, how do I know? So how do I know it's a problem, or how do I know I don't have self-confidence? And my answer might be, well, because, when I think of speaking to someone I don't know, I feel really frightened, or I feel self-conscious. So then the second question, how does that feel? The question is, well, I feel self-conscious, or maybe I feel judged. Then the third question, where in my childhood did I feel that same feeling? It may be a different topic, but will be the same feeling. It could be that it could be something in school, being bullied in school, or it could be being misunderstood and, feeling judged by a parent, or the silent treatment from a parent, or being unable to speak up or explain myself. And then those are the memories that I would change to the opposite, positive, and empowering, so that they prove the opposite. Then as I go about my day, the unconscious part of my brain is referring to the evidence in the form of those implicit childhood memories that's proving that I am valuable, that I do deserve, that I am loved, and so on.
Let's take our groundhog again. And if you think about it, you take a puzzle and you overlay it kind of one of these illusion puzzles, overlay it over the groundhog's hole, and when that groundhog sticks his head up through, he sees through the eyes of that illusion of that puzzle. It's called his filter. So if we're looking at it through the filter, the same puzzle all the time, we will consistently see as the puzzle is part of our being, because you can't escape it. You're going through it. It's there. But in essence, what we're really working with is talking about, going back to the groundhog before, let's peek through the hole, and there are no filters there, or there are less filters there, or perhaps there is sunlight, or perhaps there is something different, or there's no grass, or maybe there is grass, or maybe there's rain today, or whatever it might be. And to accept our life in a simpler manner versus always having to carry those filters with us, because those filters will change the perception of everything in our world. Yes?
Absolutely. And what makes that challenging is that we don't know we've got those filters, number one. Right. And number two, it's all on automatic. So as we are going about our day, we are, it's like, so you use that analogy of the puzzle, and I use an analogy of glasses, eyeglasses. So we've all got different colored lenses, and we're all looking at the world through these lenses, and the person who's looking through blue lenses says, well, clearly that's blue, and the other one's looking through red lenses and go, no, it's obviously red. And none of us know that we're looking through different glasses. The challenge is also that we can consciously make that decision to let go of those filters, but the filters are automatic, and they're in the unconscious part of the brain, and they are supported by the evidence from childhood memories, and that's why we need to change the childhood memories, and then the filters change automatically.
Because if you liken it back to the puzzle, a puzzle is held together by bonds. It's held together because it is strong, because it has an imprint in it, and it is your beliefs, it's your truths, it's the people around you, it's the circumstances you live in, it's the environment in which you are growing up, it is the environment in which you've replicated as an adult, and all of these bonds are very, very strong. So when we turn around and we say, let's talk about our memories or how we're seeing life, we're saying, but if I let that go, then who am I? The I, am at risk. Because if you lose your identity, people won't know me when I walk down the street. People won't know me when I'm a different person. People won't have anything to say to me when they see me around and I'm not in that same conversation. So that has a great deal of shaking the identity of self. Who is self and who is the I? Because a lot of times people will say, I'm not going on that journey. I'm just fine. We all get together and we talk about the old days and it's good, And maybe for many people that is perfectly well, and that's where they need to be. But for others that are looking for something different, that's what we're talking about today, yes?
Absolutely, and I'm very much a believer in self-empowerment, and each person is the boss of their own brain. And so if a person says, you know what, I don't want to change, I don't want to lose that sense of self or whatever that is, that's absolutely fine. That's their choice. Like you say, there are others who do need that change. And so I would say if there's anything in your life that you're not happy with and you haven't been able to change it yet, then it's worth looking at changing those childhood memories. And it's true, it will change your self-image and worldview. And if you're happy with your self-image and worldview right now, then of course you won't want to change them. But This is for those who feel I need to change something about myself, but I haven't been able to. So, I want to have more confidence, or I want to be able to speak out, or I want to have better health, or earn more money, or whatever it is. So then it's like you've got that final result you're aiming for, the thing you wish was different, is your destination, your new destination. and you want to drive from where you are now, which is where you don't want to be, to that new destination. So you need to change the GPS from where you are now to match that new destination. Otherwise, it'll keep guiding you back to where you are now, where you've been before. And so in the same way that you are not, you're the driver, so changing the GPS is not changing, you're not going to be unrecognizable. The GPS is going to accept the new destination while you as the driver still know where you've been before, and that you're going somewhere new. In the same way, changing those implicit or unconscious childhood memories, you're changing the references for the unconscious part of the brain. So that's the GPS. The conscious mind is like the driver. So consciously, you'll still remember everything that happened, and you have autonomy over your own brain. In other words, you get to choose what you change it to, and you'll want to make sure that your childhood matches what you want to live now, the feeling, the atmosphere, the beliefs, the support, all of that.
Right, because a lot of times when you do make these shifts and these changes in your life, be it health, be it mental health, physical health, wellness, whatever it might be, there's always going to be that little bit of disharmony around you. If you think about electricity, when you kind of want to almost plug in the cord and it starts to spark, that's that disharmony. Or when you are adjusting an AM or an FM radio and you're in or out of an area when you're driving your car, that's that disharmony. The idea is can you be okay with that little bit of disharmony at that time to know, oh, this is awesome. There is an opportunity or a potential, which is always that other side of the energy. There's a potential to bump myself into a different space and time to be able to say, I can do something differently. But I think when you get to that disharmonic part, that's when people really want to know, am I safe or not? So pretty much it's just standing on that precipice point, and am I going to plug the cord all the way in, or am I going to pull it all the way out? So am I going to have fear, or am I going to have direction? Am I going to take a possibility, or am I going to take a sure thing? So many times people will say, what is safety? And that is the core thing. I mean, really, isn't that the core essence of our life, is being safe and okay?
Absolutely, and that's the survival instinct. The unconscious, the top priority for the brain is survival. And what a lot of people don't realize is that feeling of being safe, again, is created in childhood. So that's why some people are nervous or anxious and others aren't. And it's because we carry that knowledge of safety with us from childhood. So it's a child who feels safe growing up, safe with their parents, then becomes an adult who has a healthy judgment, a sense of judgment, and makes choices and things that are safe, and feels that sense of safety automatically. And so as we go about our day, the brain is constantly referring to, what does this mean, and is it dangerous? That's kind of is it dangerous first, and then what does it mean? How do I react automatically? And so, but what you were saying about that, the sort of the electricity and that, the turmoil of change, another analogy I think works really well is stiff muscles. So if you start doing, you decide you're going to get physically fit, and you start doing some new physical exercise to get stronger and fitter, you'll experience stiff, sore muscles. Now, if you didn't know that that's part of muscles getting stronger, that's how you build muscle and strengthen your muscles, you would probably go, oh, I'm never doing that again. It made it worse. I have to call the doctor. But sore muscles are just part of building that stamina, building those muscles. And personal change, progress, we call it leveling up. So when you experience a bit of, cognitive dissonance or turmoil or, it's a little bit difficult, very often that's because you're about to make a big leap, big level up.
Because once you get to that point, you can kind of look back. And I liken it to the conversation where, let's say you have a particular person and you're always having issues when you're talking to them. So you're knowing that you need to change, or something needs to change, or this just isn't going to work out anymore, or you're consistently going to be able to always carry that, though this doesn't feel good kind of idea. But sometimes when one person works on themselves and they've had like a progression to a time, they'll get to a spot and they'll say, when they have that conversation with that person again, they'll say, oh, awesome. It's not triggering me. It's not driving me to another space and time, or it's not sucking me into your world or your story. Because when you come to that point and you can use the word awesome and just stop for a minute, nothing else is in your mind. You're not worried about, what do I say next? Why do I say that? What if I say that and they're mad? What if I do this and that? That story isn't there. That projection into that puzzle and that filter isn't there. All of a sudden, you just go, just stop for a second. That's really what we're looking for, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And that amazing realization that you've just spoken about there of realizing, of that's awesome. And again, like you've just said, it comes from inside first. And then what you say, how you feel, what you say, and what the decisions you make and the way you relate to that other person are all automatically shining rather than you trying to make something happen. So absolutely spot on, yes.
Now, I think also, too, Odille, we don't want to say that everybody's going to be perfect. We don't want to say that perfect even exists. How about that one? Or we want to say that it's all about experiences in life. So we may do really well and something will be uncovered. A memory might come up that you really didn't have for many decades. Or perhaps someone will show up in your life that just triggers the bejesus out of you, and you're just going, what the heck is going on, And you say, what is all of this stuff? Sometimes, too, the answer is if you just stop and breathe for a second and say, is this mine? Do I need to react or overreact? Or perhaps can I say, not today, and let it go? Sometimes those things just drift away on their own, do you think?
Yes, very, very likely. And yes, that ability to pause and take stock rather than reacting automatically. And again, as humans, we naturally react automatically. That is part of our survival system. But because we have conscious awareness, we also have the ability to override that. And something that can help is imagining a big pause button in your mind. And as you first start to feel yourself getting triggered, imagining pressing that pause button and then taking a breath, like you say, and assessing it. And what you said about, not being perfect, absolutely. And one of the most liberating things is coming to the realization that we don't have to be perfect. It's okay. It's life, and it's all part of life. What makes it difficult is the unconscious belief that we are constantly striving for perfection, that this is something that we should be doing. And when you give yourself permission to be okay with feeling good inside you as much as you can, doing what you can, but being okay with, when you don't make it. So, let's say you make these changes and you're doing really well, and then you sort of fall off the wagon. You get triggered, or you make a decision that you wish you hadn't, or you fall back into an old pattern. In that moment, it's understandable to feel frustrated and so on, but in that moment, you can say to yourself, it's okay. It's all right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing the best I can, and I'll just have another go, or what can I do next time? At which point could I have made a different decision? And speaking to yourself like you would a friend or a family member, being your own best cheerleader and encouraging and reassuring yourself rather than judging. And most of us, I think, grow up learning to judge ourselves and be harsh on ourselves. And we tend to speak to ourselves and have the attitude about ourselves that we wouldn't with someone we love. And that can be a game changer.
Because I think also, too, the idea is that we're not talking about stuffing feelings or emotions or something inside of you that needs to come up. And a lot of times people will say, we'll do all this work, and then you shouldn't have these emotions or these feelings. And that's not human at this time.
That's right.
So if you're having a feeling, and I mean, I had one recently, man, it just took me it was awful. And I just used the words, man, that thing just ripped me apart. The emotions, it just was all encompassing. And, I took several days and just sat with it. And that was it. I didn't try to make sense out of it. I didn't try to change it. I didn't try to do anything with it. I just plain sat with it. And when I was done, I got up that one day and it was just like, oh, it seems like whatever it was is gone. It just dissipated because that's what it needed to do. So I think sometimes we say, are you asking me to change my reaction all the time if I've still got some of those pent up inside of me? Because as we well know, emotions and feelings that are pent up and pushed down become many diseases over time. I mean, how did we get to be such sick people in the year 2023? I mean, people have so much stuff down, it's pathetic, because they're kind of holding on to that and not able to find these little kind of glimpses where they can let some of this stuff go.
Right. And I think that, I think you're definitely not ignoring, not pushing it down. For me, the key is answering. So in other words, just like you would answer someone who is in the room with you, so someone who says, why do I always do this? You wouldn't just kind of ignore them or agree with them and say, yeah, you're terrible. Right. You would answer them and say, hey, you're all right. It's okay. So that kind of, sort of becoming aware of answering those thoughts and those feelings rather than ignoring them or agreeing with them or pushing them down, just answering them using logic and reason and compassion. And one of the things I say is we're all children in adult bodies trying to cope with adult responsibilities. And if you think about it, because all our coping mechanisms are developed through childhood, that's effectively what we are. We're all children in adult bodies and dealing with adult life. And so, again, all doing the best we can with what we had, from childhood. And so one of the things I teach is that when you have an emotion or a thought that is disempowering, realize that is coming from the child. So it's as if you've got a child sitting in the room with you who's had the background you've had, and that child is saying, I'm feeling frightened, or I feel unworthy, or why does this happen, or I'm frustrated, angry, and answer it as you would a child. Don't ignore it and don't join in, Answer the way you would answer a child with kindness, compassion, and patience, and logic and reason.
Because if you think about a lot of very successful people, and it's been, I call it leaked out, so to speak, in some people's histories or their books or stories, and we've had many on the show where they've said, yeah, I was a great success, but you know what? When I closed the door and drew the blinds, I was like a 2-year-old just laying on the floor kicking and screaming because it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I felt, or I was really angry, or this, that, or the other. So I think the idea that we aren't supposed to have feelings or emotions, we aren't supposed to have a past and a present, and that we aren't supposed to be creative beings now learning to explore something different and expand our consciousness is what we need to be able to say, whoa, for a second. I get it. All of this is just floating around me, and it's all up for grabs these days, versus saying that we have to be clear and concise. You know, I think of the word perfection, and I know how it originated post-war, because people were saying that they needed to have a white picket fence in the house because that was the opposite of the homes that were destroyed or broken down, and how people couldn't do things. And when money started to come in, we can fix ourselves up. We can have our teeth fixed. We can turn around and have plastic surgery. We can have 2 cars in the driveway. We can make sure there's no weeds in our front yard, you know. All of these things were part of society. So I think sometimes people think it's only woe is me. And in essence, it's society that it had those things go on at that time. So to understand that it's part of a bigger picture, it's not just your own solo journey, really can start freeing up the ability to make a change, yes?
Right, absolutely. And, we tend to think that we know what will make us happy. Mm-hmm. And we think, well, if I've got that, when I have that, if I could only do that or have that or be with that person, then I'll be happy. And that's the brain automatically trying to predict based on the current moment. And that's, we do that unconsciously. But the truth is that feelings, emotions, anything we want, it's because of how we think we'll feel when we have it. And the truth is that feelings are only chemicals. That's all it is. We cannot feel anything other than chemical reactions in the body. So, stress chemicals like adrenaline and cortisol create changes in the organs, our blood flow, so they dilate certain blood vessels and constrict others. They increase heart rate and so on. They have all these physiological changes in the body, and we feel the effects of that physically, and we recognize them or experience as emotions. And in the same way, feel-good chemicals like endorphins, serotonin, oxytocin, they also have physical effects on the body that create sensations like love and gratitude and peace and excitement and so on. And again, we feel those physical sensations, but we don't register them as physical sensations. The conscious mind immediately and automatically interprets them to mean something. I'm happy, I'm excited, I'm in love, and so on. And the benefit of that, why that's so empowering, is it means nothing outside of us can change how we feel. And that's a good thing, because it gives us complete control and power over what we experience, because nothing and no one outside of us can climb into our bodies and change that chemistry. Only our own brain does that. Now, we do have those feelings in response to things, but it's still happening inside us. That thing is not giving that feeling to us. So we experience a thing or see a thing or speak to a person, and we have a chemical response, a physiological response inside our body that we experience as anxiety or love or fear or excitement, whatever it is. But because the brain, the unconscious part of the brain, can't tell the difference between reality and imagination, can't use logic or reason, and can't judge something as unrealistic, we can sit in a room somewhere and allow our imagination to create whatever those experiences are, and we can create those physiological changes in our body and have those emotions without the thing. Now, of course, what generally happens is as we try to do that, the conscious mind keeps interfering and going, oh, but I don't really have it, but what about this and what about that? So that's the challenge to overcome there. But that first step of recognizing I am the master of my own chemistry, nothing outside of me can change that, means that if you don't achieve, so let's say, or here's from my own experience, I desperately wanted to live in Hollywood. So I grew up I was British, but grew up in South Africa, lived in England for a while. I was a professional actress and singer, and my dream was to be a film actress in Hollywood, and that is all I wanted. And I thought, oh, it would be so wonderful, and, I had all these ideas. Now, once I started doing this work and changing, gaining control of my own chemistry and changing my perceptions, in addition, of course, to the childhood memories, I started letting go of that and thinking, it doesn't matter if I'm sitting on a park bench somewhere. I can create this feeling of elation and worthiness and fun and wonderfulness inside me, excitement, all of that, just sitting, not achieving anything. And that realization then allowed me to see things I hadn't seen before. And I am now living a life I absolutely love but could never have imagined from where I was. Now, if I had insisted that I had to be in Hollywood in order to be happy, I wouldn't be married to the love of my life right now. I wouldn't be living the life I love. I wouldn't be this healthy and so on, because I didn't know it existed.
Well, I think also, too, in closing, Odille, that it's truly about what we are seeing, and what you've explained is about the evolution of the human. If you look at it in the year 2023, I almost call it as we are now breaking into the concept of avatars, ETs, illusion, manifesting, putting things out there, having an experience and feeling it, out-of-body experiences, and a lot of this spiritualness that we're more about. We've kind of really, truly come to this precipice point where people are saying, you mean I'm not like the cowboys and Indians, very basic in our human existence? We are so much more. If you look how medical science is really getting kicked to the curb because it's not evolving fast enough. Neuroscience is going on warp speed. And people are saying, whoa, what's going on? I'm kind of not meshing all of this together. So pretty much we're at that sparking point of plugging in, the electric cord kind of idea, because there is so much going on. We're at this point of projection into our next space and time. And isn't that the most awesome time to be alive? To see all of this from the past, as you share, and see where we are in the present and say, look with anticipation into the future.
Absolutely. And that, that sort of perception and that choosing that attitude and that choosing to focus in that direction is what is really empowering. So you're not at the mercy of things and people outside of yourself that you have no control over.
It's seriously about shedding a lot of our old fears, and even the word fear. We've spoken over a decade now on this radio show about the fear of death, the fear of end of life, the fear of this, that, or the other. And, someone had said to me the other day about death, I said, it's just one breath away. What is all of this? And, fear, you're living your life based upon that one breath. And it's just breathe in and out and just be happy for that moment. That's all you can live in, is in the present.
Absolutely.
Odille, it was such a pleasure to have you with us today to share about your work. Can you tell us about your website and where your book can be found?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Dr. Jeanette. I've so enjoyed our conversation. It's been a pleasure. So for more information, our book is the best place to start. It's called Change What Happened to You, How to Use Neuroscience to Get the Life You Change Childhood Memories. And it can be found everywhere books are sold, but I'd also love to offer your audience a free copy of the ebook version. So if you would like the book for free, it's a PDF version, you can go to our website, which is theremmertmethod.com /podcast gift or podcast gift if you're American. So it's the remmettmethod.com /podcast gift, and you can get the free ebook copy of the book.
Odille, it was such a pleasure to have you with us, because I think that the gift that you're sharing, what we're doing is we're giving possibility. We're sharing potential. We are engaging in energy and saying, try it. Just see what inspires you on the page. If only 2 sentences out of the whole book shift something in your perception, that was such a wonderful gift that you've been given. If it's something that the entire book, you do it and you say, oof, I don't know about that. Sit the book down and come back and say, wow, how has my day changed? And you say, I don't know, but there's something that has shifted. Because everything what you and I were talking about today is shifting the energy around you and within you, and that's your potential for change. So no matter what you read, you hear, you listen to, and you say, today is not the same as yesterday. Maybe similar, it might also be different. That's the real goal, is awareness. Isn't what we're offering today is awareness?
Absolutely, beautifully put. Exactly. Yes, I concur completely.
Yeah. Well, we thank you so much for joining us, Odille, today, be able to share about awareness and how we can make a change to be able to let go of some of that baggage. I don't know about you, but I've really gone to a very tiny purse, and I'm sure you're just maybe a similar age group as myself. And if you notice, we used to be carrying those really big purses a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Yep. It's about cleaning out that closet and letting them all go. So we thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jeanette. It's been an absolute pleasure.
If you'd like more information about Odille Remmert, again, the book is Change What Happened to You, How to Use Neuroscience to Get the Life You Want by Changing Your Negative Childhood Memories. Please do click on the link on the bottom of today's show page to accept her gift of a free ebook. And it definitely is about being able to say, I'm going to breathe in and out today. I know there's something different out there for me. Find a word, a sentence, a thought, a pattern, perhaps just the light of the sun, perhaps just the feeling of something cool around you, maybe even just a hug. All of that is shifting your energy. Be open and aware that everything is truly moving all the time. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher, and until tomorrow, have a great day.
Today we discussed many life-changing concepts. Who do you turn to, and how do you know what is best when faced with a health crisis? Dr. Jeanette is a patient advocate. She listens to the patient, the doctors, and the family, clarifies the health issues and concerns, then helps the patient make the best choices going forward. If you would like help implementing change into your life and health, we can talk and see where you are stuck and how to improve the quality of your life. Check the link on the bottom of today's show page or visit dr-jeanette-gallagher.com to schedule a phone appointment today.